now that we've got our maintenance tips done, we're going to go into troubleshooting and repair. I guess first on our list is everybody's curious, well, how do I change a light bulb if I need to? Phillips screwdriver, you'll find one screw on the inner ring that needs to be removed to change a light bulb. At no point in time do you want to take any of these 10 screws that go around it out. What that does is holds the liner in place. You basically remove the one screw, the light comes out and will naturally float above the surface. We've left enough cord inside of that niche to get it above the surface. Once it's above the surface, on the back you'll find one 7/16 nut on a band that circumferences the light. Remove the one nut, the light will pop open, and inside you'll find the bulb. Unscrew the bulb just like at the house and bring it down to your local pool store. They'll match that bulb up with what you've got here. What you've got is not a 12-volt bulb. It is not a quartz halogen bulb. This is the true pool light, which is going to be a 500-watt, 120-volt pool light bulb. It's important that you get the correct bulb for this. If you use a floodlight bulb, just from Menards or something like that, it's going to overheat inside of this niche. This is also something that whenever you turn this light on, it must be submerged. If you have this up above the water and turn the light on, even if you've got a pool bulb in there, it's still going to overheat without having the water around it. So it's quite crucial that this be submerged before lighting. But quite basic, after you've replaced your bulb, wind it back around, hook the bottom first. There's a small catch on the bottom that'll hook in there. Start the screw, and this can all be done without draining the pool. You just do it from up above and screw it back in. Now, before you replace that bulb, there's a couple things that you should check first. There's a GFI protector on this bulb to keep it from lighting if it's failed. You'll find that over by your pump and filter area. Double check that first. Make sure that the GFI is not tripped. Let's say the GFI is not tripped and you replace the bulb, and every time you turn the light on, the GFI does trip and it won't stay lit. What you've got there is you've got a bad fixture. That would be this whole fixture that I just pulled out here. Now, to remove that fixture, quite easy. On the back, we've got a light niche that the light sits in. This is our conduit. This conduit is filled with water. Zoom up a little there, Joe. And comes up above cement level back here, where you're going to have this junction box mounted above cement level. And you'll notice inside of this, once you take that top off, that there'll be a connection in there. Make for certain that your power is turned off, and go ahead, undo the connection, and that whole light fixture will pull completely out of this conduit and out of the pool. There again, take it to your neighborhood pool store, call us if you'd like, we can get them. And basically you just feed that new fixture back in, reconnect the 3 wires color-coded like they were. So that should conclude us on light. Moving right on to the chlorinator, pretty bulletproof. If you get a little leak or anything on one of these fittings, just tighten them up and it should tighten up. Should you not be able to get it to stop leaking, very common chlorinator, you should be able to find parts for this at any pool store. If it's leaking around the top, there's a small O-ring in here. They say start out by greasing it. If you notice that it's cracked and worn, replace it. It's a $2 item, as they say, and readily available. So that should cover the chlorinator. And chances are, if you're not getting a chlorine reading, it probably lies more in the cyanuric acid, your conditioner. What that does is allows your chlorine to work. So before you go tear this thing apart, have the cyanuric acid tested again at any pool store. That should cover you there. Moving on to Moving right along, coming up the line here on our pump, common problems on the pump. I guess the first problem we get with them is they think it's the filter because they call and they say, my gosh, my filter is only running anywhere from 1 pound to 5 pounds instead of that 12 or 18 pounds like it normally runs. And my return pressure and the jets in the pool seems to be depleted quite a bit. It doesn't seem to be pumping a lot of water. It's not the fault of the filter that the pressure is low. The fault lies in the pump. This is something that is most predominant in the spring when we've got some fine buds and stuff coming off from the trees that can make it through the basket in here. What happens if they get through this basket, they go into the impeller and they get caught in the impeller, and that impeller will not pump water like it used to. Easiest way to fix this, and 90% of the time this is all you're going to have to do, is shut your main drain and your skimmer valve off. Shut your pump off, of course. Remove your basket. Now reach down in here and then reach back towards the motor. You'll barely be able to feel in the center there, and you'll feel a fine bunch of leaves and stuff clogged in the end of the impeller. If you just take an average size screwdriver or even an ink pen, come down in there and start digging around a little bit at that edge of that impeller. It's a round hole about so big, and if you dig around a little bit, you'll take that clog out of there, and boom, the pump will take right off again. Should that not happen, what you'll have to do is you'll have to break your pump in half. It's not that big a deal. It doesn't even require it. What we've got here is we've got a band that holds that impeller housing together. Quite basic, we unscrew our thumb screw on top. The band pops off, and the whole pump splits in half. What we've now got here on the front, this is what we call a diffuser. This, you probably won't have to take it off. You'll probably be able to look right in here, see the debris, and pick them out. Should you have some stubborn ones in there? Very simple. Undo a couple screws here, 5 of them. The diffuser then pops off. You don't have to keep track of top or bottom on this. This is a universal mount. Will go anywhere. And now we can see our impeller. As you can see, these circular twisting veins coming in. If you've got something stubborn that's way up inside of these veins, all you've got to do is take a coat hanger, give it a gentle bend, start from your outside edge, and push it towards the middle. That is the route that it was trying to take, and it should come back that same way. And just simply push it towards the middle. What that's going to do is take any of those little rocks or anything that might have gotten caught in there and get them to the middle where you can free those out. At that point in time, that pump should take right off. Basically, put your diffuser back on. Tighten your screws. Just, you don't have to bear down on them or anything. Just tighten them up hand tight. But before we reinstall the two halves together, we've got another O-ring here. The only time you'll have to lube this O-ring is if you take it apart. Generally, just a little Vaseline is all you're going to need on it, and it should stop it from leaking when you put it back together. But basically, slide the pump back together. Little gentle twist doesn't hurt. Reinstall the band, but now here's a little helpful hint. When you reinstall this band, make sure you can get your thumb screw back on there relatively close to the bottom of the pump. Down in this neighborhood. Now then, you'll tighten this by hand, and it doesn't hurt to reef right down on it. You can only put so much pressure on it, and you'll come to a point where, boy, that's about as tight as I can get it. Now, simply go around this ring and tap. Now it turns easily again. Let's tighten it down until I can hardly turn it again. Now let's just go around and tap some more, about 3 or 4 times through that process, and that'll tighten that right up, and you shouldn't have any leaks. Should you still have a little bit of a leak down below when you're done, what I suggest at that time is pop it back in half again, pull your O-ring out, clean everything up good, and get just any type of a silicone gasket maker from your hardware store and squirt it on that O-ring before you tighten it up. So that should take care of your clogged impeller. The next biggest problem that we get calls on, I guess, would be I've got air in my pump and blowing back into my pool. First thing you're going to want to check is this O-ring. This is suction here on the pump, and what happens is if this O-ring's cracked or worn, it'll allow air to come in, and you'll see it through this top when the pump is running. Should that not fix it? The next step that I suggest is to, on the front of the pump here, we've got our skimmer and we've got our main drain valve. These are a sealed system. Now, as that ages and everything, and those O-rings get older, you may have a bad O-ring in that, and it's drawing the air there and coming into your pump. A very easy way to tell where that air is being drawn in from is to cup your hand underneath one valve and take a garden hose, no nozzle or anything on it, just a nice gentle stream coming down, and run some water over that valve. Also, any joint that you might find in your PVC, run a little bit of water over it. What will happen is, as this pump is running and drawing air, if it's got a suction leak up here, basically a bad O-ring or anything, and all of a sudden we flood it with water, what's going to happen is the air is going to disappear, because instead of sucking air in, it's going to suck water in that suction leak. And I can't tell you how quick and easy it is to find a suction leak with a garden hose. All you've got to do is flood each port with water. Probably the second most common question on a pump or a problem with a pump is I've got air coming into my pool, but I don't see any air in my pump basket. This is nice and clear and full of water. There's only 2 spots. From here, front is all suction. From here back is pressure. So if we had a leak there, what we're going to do is we're going to leak water instead of sucking air. Your leak is going to be in here, someplace below the lid. First place to check is going to be your plug right here. What this does is drain the water out for winterizing. Make sure that it's got an O-ring on there that's not cracked. If you can't find the right size O-ring, just a little bit of Teflon tape available at any hardware store on those threads first should take care of it. Should that not take care of it, you'll need a 1/2-inch wrench, and between this basket and this impeller housing, there's 4 bolts here. As I say, they're 1/2 inch. Remove the 4 bolts. The first thing I would try is tightening the bolts to see if that helps, because there's a gasket in here. Should that not help and you're still getting air in your pool and not seeing it in the cover, chances are good as this gasket in between there. Most of the time on the bottom here, it'll get just a little crack in it, and it'll draw some air there into the impeller. But That's available. There again, any pool store should have that right on their shelves. Basically what you've got here is a Stay Right Duraglass, 1 horsepower or 1.5 horsepower. But that should be all you need to tell them to get that piece that you need. There again, for your chlorinator, should you have to get any parts for your chlorinator, that is a Rainbow 320. So as I say, that should take care of you on your pump, and other than that, they're very bulletproof, and neither one of these things are anything you're going to have to perform a lot. We're just trying to kind of get used to what's going on here a little bit. Moving right on. Most common problem that we have with the filter is, geez, I backwash my filter, but then 5 hours later, my pressure is way back up again where it says it needs to be backwashed again. There's several different reasons for this happening. I would say the most predominant reason is when somebody's on well water or some city water, and it's only going to be when you initially put that, 6-8 inches of water back in your pool in the spring. But what happens is they've got high calcium or high lime in that water. And what it does is it'll coat that DE that's on our grids in there with a hard crust on it and cause it to mimic that it needs to be backwashed again right away. That is something that if you do have to clean it, you're only going to have to do it once in the spring. Once you get that initial water put back in, you'll have to polish the water up a little bit and then clean your filter, and then you should be set for the rest of the year. Second reason for something like that happening would be somebody messed up when they backwashed. They forgot to bleed the air out of it before they added their DE, so basically what they had was only a half a tank of water, and that DE that was slurried in the water only went around half of the grids. There again, the fix is still the same, quite basic. What you'll need is a 7/8 wrench to loosen the band. On the side of your filter, you're going to see 2 arrows. If you don't see 2 arrows, make 2 arrows with a felt marker. These 2 pieces have to be lined up just right again when you put it back together. So make sure you've got arrows, or that you mark some on there before you take this tank assembly apart. But quite basically, 7/8 wrench, undo your band. Remove the band. The filter top, you may have to get a screwdriver in between here and wedge a little bit to get it to pop off, but just don't do it with the pump running. This should always be a pump off type operation. Now inside we've got a set of grids in here. At no point in time do you want to take this grid assembly apart. All you do is rinse it off a little bit. And by the way, if you want to take this out to the driveway or something like that, where you don't want the mess by your pump and filter, this multi-port valve was plumbed in. Very simply, remove the 2 thumb screws, and that filter will come right off the back of it, and you can take this away from your equipment slab and do whatever maintenance you need to do on it. Once you've gotten it out to the driveway or someplace where you're not worried about making a little bit of a mess, you'll find that you rinse it down and you'll find 2 labels here on the top of this black assembly that say lift here. Grab both of these. Like I say, you'll have to rinse it off because it's going to look terrible when you open it. But you grab these and just gently twist back and forth, and this whole assembly is strictly held on by this one piece of pipe here. And now the assembly comes out. That's what a brand new assembly looks like. This is what an assembly looks like, normal operation. There's nothing wrong with the way you see this filter. It's been backwashed. There's always going to be a little bit on there. As I say, if you've got that high calcium, what you'll find out is instead of the stuff just flaking off like this, you'll find a hard layer in it that was built up on there and turns to almost like a cement. But Basically, you're going to take this filter out, as I say, to a place where you're not too concerned about making a mess. The diatomaceous earth that is in here, completely harmless. Does not harm the environment in any way, so don't worry about anything there. It will not kill grass or anything, but basically the first thing you're going to do is you're going to rinse most of this off with a garden hose. Do not take this assembly apart. It's a real bear to put back together if you do. Just leave the assembly together and just kind of squirt down in between. Clean it out good. Now once you've gotten it cleaned and 90% of the stuff off from there, you're going to go to your hardware store and pick up 2 gallons of muriatic acid. Muriatic acid, there again, is safe for the environment, but it does kill grass. So you're not going to want to do this in the middle of your front yard by any means. But basically, once you've got 90% of this DE washed off from here, you're then going to dribble a little bit of that muriatic acid over these fabric pads. What that's going to do is it's going to get into that fabric and, I mean, just turn them bright white again and take any body oils or anything that may have accumulated in them and get that cleaned out. And when you're done, it should look as white as that brand new assembly that I showed you. But like I say, just dribble a little muriatic acid on them, and that'll eat that calcium or anything else that's gotten into that fabric and clogged it. Stand back a little bit and do it in a well-ventilated area because that muriatic acid will put off some fumes that aren't the most favorable to be breathing in. But basically, when you're done, reassemble it into the filter over here. Simply grab where it says lift here. Bring it back in, and right above this pipe that everything mounts on, push down there. It'll slide right back down in. That quick and easy. When you put it back together, you should there again get that 3 weeks to 3 months or whatever you were getting in between backwashers out of it again. Second most common problem that we have with the filter that we have questions on is, geez, when I add water, or when I add my diatomaceous earth to my skimmer, it goes up into the pump, goes up into my filter, but then some of it comes right back into my swimming pool. There again, disassemble your filter. The first thing you're going to check is right on top. We've got a screen here. It looks just like a window type screen. What this does is it helps air to get out of this filter when the pump is running. But if a filter has become overloaded or clogged, you can sometimes blow this screen out. This is something that, there again, they should have right on the shelf, and that's quite an easy replacement. It just snaps on the top and right in place. Should you have been around town and you cannot find this screen, there is a quick dirty fix. 2 layers of window screen, standard issue at any hardware store. Wrap it around there, put a stainless steel clamp around it, and that should get you through on a quick fix. The only other place that you can be leaking DE back into the pool is through this filter assembly, and we're going to go to that right now. Clean it well. Visually inspect it first for any rips or anything in the fabric or any edges that the sewing maybe has came loose. Should you still not be able to find anything, this is when you're going to want to get your owner's manual out, because that's going to show you exactly how these grids go back in. But on the bottom here, you're going to find 1/2 inch threaded rod with a 1/2 inch nut on it. Take that nut off, and now these 2 halves are going to pull apart, and basically you're going to have these screens in their singular form. Clean them well, and then, as I say, inspect the edges, inspect the sides. Should one of the sewing, one of the seams come loose a little bit, take a little fish line and stitch it back up. They're an expensive grid. These are each probably $35. So I mean, if you can do a little sewing on the edge, I mean, that's all it takes, and it saves you a trip. Look for any tears or anything in them. Look for these being broke off up here. Other than what it is you've got a leak someplace where that DE is going through the fabric and or around here if those are broke, and or through this screen if the screen is bad. When you reassemble this assembly here, make sure everything kind of fits together quite easy. Don't force them, because these have got a plastic framework inside. And if you bust those up at top by forcing it together, you're going to restrict the flow from going where it should be going. But as I say, it's a pretty basic system. The DE collects on these pads, the water is forced through it and ran back to the pool clean. And all you've got, if you've got DE coming in, is a small hole in there someplace. When you reassemble, this O-ring that's on here, a little Vaseline there doesn't hurt before you reassemble it. It'll slide together easier. Reposition it, push down above the pipe here till it stops. Now, remove this O-ring. Clean it well, get all the old DE and everything off from it, and now grab a gob of that Vaseline and coat the whole thing with Vaseline before you reassemble it. Now, when we put that top back on, let's not forget about these arrows. There again, you'll want to clean this rim up here a little bit too before you reassemble it. Maybe run another little bead of that Vaseline around that edge. Back together it goes. Making sure our arrows are lined up. And our assembly is then screwed back on. There again, that same trick is going to apply. Tighten your screw down here a little bit. And now tap around here with the hammer, and that'll just help tighten those two shells together a little bit and avoid any leaks. That should cover us on maintenance on that filter. Now, there is one more point in which you could get some DE coming back into the pool. That wouldn't be the fault of the filter. It would be the fault of the multi-port valve. And what can happen, regular screwdriver again, or a Phillips screwdriver, I'm sorry, again. Remove the internal guts of your multi-port valve. And inside you're going to notice a pie-shaped gasket in there. Make sure that it's glued down securely into its grooves and it's not warped out of shape or torn or anything like that, because what that'll do is it'll allow some of that DE to bypass and go in the pool. As a general rule though, you'll also at the same time, if that gasket is bad, you'll be leaking water out of your backwash line because it's also bypassing out of there. There again, very simple fix. Your product numbers are right here on top of it. Write them down, go to a pool store, pick up a pie-shaped gasket, and re-glue it back in. Just a silicone gasket maker there again is going to be fine to hold that in there. One trick. Geez, which selection did I have this on when I took it off? You'll notice that in one point here we've got a flat edge. Where the others are rounded, one point has a flat edge. There again on our valve, one point has a flat edge. Put it together. We know we've got it in the right place if we line those two flat edges up again. That's about all the maintenance there is on this multi-port valve. There is, well, I take that back. There is one other thing. Should this handle not have the spring like that, if it's loose here and wiggles up and down when it's tightened up, what you've got then is a spring failure on the inside of here. That's a metal spring, And if you let your pH get too acidic, you can eat through that metal spring, and what that'll do is you won't have that pressure on this anymore, pushing down on that gasket, holding it tight, directing your flow. So that would be another point to look at too, would be that metal spring. Should it be that spring, just bring this whole assembly down to the pool store. They should be able to pop this pin through here out, pull the handle off, drop a new spring in. I mean, it's that quick and easy, and you're back on the road again. As far as filtration, that should cover that. Moving on, we're going to show you a little bit about popping the liner back in the track if it comes out. Cut. Before we get right into how to put your liner back in the track and whatnot, I want to back up 2 steps. Should you be drawing the air into the pump, before checking O-rings and checking plumbing fittings for leaks and everything, 2 things that your skimmer can do to cause that. Number 1, if you don't have that water level high enough, it'll whirlpool inside, draw a vortex down, and bring air right up through the line and into the pump. So watch for that vortex and watch your water level, number 1. Number 2, this weird door. As we spoke earlier, this traps leaves in there. Should one of the children or something have pulled it up, all of a sudden it becomes stuck. It doesn't allow water to come in as fast as it's drawing it out. So consequently, all of a sudden you're drawing air, and it's strictly because this weird door here has either gotten some debris in it or something or other has gotten it stuck. So those are a couple other things to keep in mind before you start ripping into your pump on looking for air leaks. On your liner, it fastens in to your swimming pool around the edge in a liner track here that is fastened to your coping. This would be your cement level here. You can zoom right in on this, Joe. What we've got is a small clip on the edge of this liner that, as it goes into this track and is pushed in, holds it tight. On occasion, it may never happen, but on occasion this liner may pop out a little bit and droop down. What you'll do is you'll notice that on the front of this liner, say it's drooped down just a little bit in between and coming out, you'll notice just a little catch here that you can just barely get your fingernails hooked into. Grab onto that. This liner is by far tougher than you'd ever imagine. It's pretty tough to go through with your fingernails. Grab onto that and pull up on it, and then it's got to push in on a 90-degree angle back in. So you've got to kind of pull it higher than it needs to be, bend the bead, and push back on a 90-degree angle. To make this job by far easier, grab a milk jug of water, a gallon milk jug, turn your hot water on your faucet, let it run for 10 minutes. Let it reach peak temperature, as hot as it'll come out of that tap, and fill that gallon milk jug with water. You take and you dump it on the front of the liner as well as behind the liner. Don't be afraid of putting water behind it. What it's going to do is super warm that liner up, and it's going to make it much, much more pliable, and you'll probably be able to pop it right back in, and it shouldn't take you more than just a minute or so to pop that liner back into that track. To avoid this, when you're swimming, it doesn't hurt to go around there and just push here with your fingertips. Push in. Every once in a while you'll feel it go snap. What happens is ants and whatnot get behind there, and they can, believe it or not, put quite a bit of pressure on that and pop it out. Just before closing the pool, just before you shut it down for the fall, we suggest that you go around and you check these, as well as right after opening that swimming pool. It doesn't hurt to go around and just kind of check the speed, make sure that it's snapped in all the way before it starts to droop down and gets harder to pull back in. Should you get a hole or something in the liner, 90% of those are going to happen above the water line. The reason being is, well, 90% of the reason is golf balls. Kids get them out there. We don't suggest the use of golf balls. What happens is they throw those golf balls, and they've still got tons of speed when they're in the air, and they'll hit this liner. What they'll do is they'll put small little holes in it, and what it does, it just kind of separates the vinyl there. Very, very easy fix if you have to do it, but if you go down to your pool store, you'll find balls that sink just like a golf ball, but they've got nice soft edges on them. Something you should invest in if the kids like to dive after the golf balls. But basically, there's one of two ways to do it. Myers 50 Acres, your local pool store, your local hardware store are all going to have vinyl repair kits with clear material in it. That way it always matches. But now if you put it on the outside of that liner there, well, it gives the kids something to pick at, and it also doesn't cosmetically look quite as nice. They can be used underwater as well, repair kits can. But what we suggest for those repairs, that if you need them, which I would say maybe 1 out of every 30 we end up repairing a couple of those on, but should you have to do a repair like that, there again you're going to reverse this process. You're going to pull up on it and get that liner to pull out. Use the hot water trick again. It's going to make it a lot easier to pull out, but then you can pull that liner out, put your patch on the back of it, reinstall your liner, and now we've got an invisible repair that nobody's ever going to know is there and can't be picked at by kids and torn off either. So that would be the only maintenance that you would have to do on your vinyl liner. Next on our list of commonly asked questions is, my water's green, what do I do? Well, is it the water that's green, or is it growing on spots, green spots on the liner? Let's say the water itself is green. It's kind of a cloudy green. First off, it was strictly lack of chlorine. An algicide does not keep green algae from growing. The only thing that allows green algae to grow is chlorine. The only thing that kills green algae is chlorine. Start out with 2 bags of shock. Give it 12 hours. If that doesn't show great signs of improving, add 2 more bags of shock. Do not at any point in time buy some of these algicides that they claim are for a green algae in your swimming pool. They will do you nothing other than make your water foam up terribly. It's chlorine that's going to fix that problem. And there again, use a lithium-based shock when you do that and add it through the skimmer so that everything's dissolved into the pool. That should take care of green algae. Second question on algae is, geez, my pool is growing green spots, mustard color spots, or black spots. Mostly in the corners. Any place there's a seam or any roughness or anything, it adheres and it starts to grow. This is what we'll call a black algae or a mustard algae. Takes a totally different type of algicide. This is also a expensive type of algicide, and it can be kind of tough to get rid of sometimes. What you'll need to do is go to your local pool store and let them know you've got a black or a mustard algae. The treatment for both should be the same. Follow the directions on the bottle. But now what we suggest is take anything that goes into that pool, and I mean toys, vacuum equipment, the kids' swimming suits, anything that would ever happen to get into that water, and treat it at the same time. Throw it right in the pool, make it look like a garbage pit. I mean, get everything that ever goes in there and put it in and treat it at the same time, or you can have it come back. But that is the only way to get rid of those 2 types of algae there, is to treat it with a special type of algicide. So, as I say, if it's growing just in spots here and there, it's either a black or it's a mustard algae. And when you treat it, make sure you get your money's worth out of that product by putting everything that goes into that pool in there, because that is the only way you're going to get rid of it. And also run your pump and filter, because it can be stored up in the pump, filter, or a heater. So there's something else you should look at. To plumbing leaks a little bit. Very basic. If you see a leak, you've got a plumbing leak. Most prevalent is going to be right here on the pump. They're very easy fix. Basically, going over your fittings a little bit, we have a T, which is nothing more than just what it sounds, a T. A 90, which is just what it sounds, it's a 90. A male adapter. A male adapter has male threads on the one end and a female slip joint on the other end for your pipe to glue into. Should this male adapter on the bottom of the pump be leaking here, very simple fix. We're going to cut the pipe through here, Go to the hardware store and get a coupling, just like it sounds. It couples things together. It's a coupling. We're going to cut the pipe, unscrew our male adapter, add some Teflon tape to the threads or a pipe dope or thread sealant, screw it back in, and basically we've just got a cut in the middle of our pipe here. Very simple. We're going to lift this pipe up, glue with PVC glue this coupling back in. Very, very simple fix on any of this. All can be had usually right at your local hardware store. The only thing you want to tell them is these are a Schedule 40 pressure type fitting. That's going to hold true for your piping too if you have to buy any piping to replace this at some point down the road. So as I say, very, very simple fix. A pair of pliers is very nice channel lock type to tighten anything up. As I say, all very, very simple fixes will save you costly service calls. Next thing we're going to touch base on here a little bit is going to be leak detection. My gosh, my pool's going down. To start with, in the fall or spring, when we have the pool warmed up to 85 degrees, you're going to notice quite a bit of steam coming off that pool. That steam is not smoke. What that steam is actually water coming off from that pool. I've seen pools in the fall when their water temperature is up to 85 degrees and the air temperature at night is going down to 30 degrees. I've seen them lose 2 inches in a night. Do not use that as a basis of you having a leak in your pool. You do not have a leak. What you're doing is you're evaporating water off the top. So first thing to look at there. Secondly, first thing I want you to check, if you are losing water, is this backwash hose. If this multi-port valve in here is malfunctioned at all, while the pump is running, you can leak water out of your backwash hose. Should that not be the case, now we know we've either got a leak in the liner or we've got a leak in some of the underground piping here. Very, very simple way to determine whether or not it's underground piping or liner is to simply shut your pump and filter off and leave it off for 24 hours. Take the tabs off the timer and leave it off for 24 hours. Very, very quick, easy determination there. Now what you're going to do after that 24 hours is measure the water loss. I suggest putting a small mark on the skimmer plate. Measure your water loss that pool incurred 24 hours not running. Now, the next day, as I say, you're going to measure your water loss. Fill the pool back up to normal operating temperature. Turn your timer on. There again, leave the tabs right off. Let it run 24 hours straight. And then measure your water loss. If we've lost more water with this pump running than shut off, we know it's in the plumbing. If we've lost the same amount, whether it was shut off for 24 hours or whether it ran 24 hours, at that point in time, we know it's the liner. And there again, it's just a nice shortcut for us because that's the first thing we're going to ask you to do if you call us with a leak in your swimming pool. So that'll save some time there. And probably in either one of those cases there, you'll want to call us for further assistance on how to fix the liner or how to fix the underground plumbing. And other than that, that pretty much covers our swimming pool. We're going to move on now to openings and closings. What I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that over to my brother Russ, and he's going to go over all that. And there again, very self-explanatory on this, and we're hoping that you would do it on your own. As you know, as the customer base grows every year, it gets tougher and tougher to fit everybody in. So hopefully this is going to be a big help to you. And as I say, I'm going to turn it over to my brother Russ now. Thanks.